Hello, my name is David Jones. I'm the Managing Director for Robert Half across Asia Pacific. I'd like to welcome you to our CFO Master Series. Throughout this series, we've been able to gain unprecedented access to some of the most influential CFOs across the region. The series will help to uncover what these people's main leadership qualities are, how they got to where they are in their careers, and what keeps them driving forward. I hope you enjoy the CFO Master Series.
Aashish Kamat, welcome to the CFO Master Series. Aashish, as the Asia Pacific Managing Director and Chief Financial Officer for JP Morgan, one of the oldest and largest financial institutions in the world, what do you think makes a successful CFO?
I think you've got to have a very good handle on your business, the business you operate in, the fundamentals of that business, on how you make money, what are your client segments, who are your clients and how you interact with those clients, and your macro environment, a macro and regulatory environment that you operate within. I think you've got to understand the basic building blocks, because I think it's become pretty apparent through this crisis that for CFOs and CEOs who haven't had a pulse on the details, you've seen what's happened in terms of companies as well as banks suffering. So you've got to understand the details in terms of your fundamental P&L and income statement, but also the risk that go with that P&L. You've got to have a pretty good understanding on your balance sheet. I think you've got to have a pretty good understanding on your macro environment and regulatory environment. I think going forward, that's going to be pretty essential, especially for the banking industry, given the regulatory scrutiny that it's coming under. And every CFO will need to understand the rules, the change, and how those rules are going to have an impact on the industry, and more specifically their bank, and how what changes they need to make from a business perspective as well as a client perspective to respond to those changes.
What are some of the important traits of a good CFO?
I think the important traits of a good CFO, clearly, I always start with basically every person, that I hire, having a good fundamental understanding of the economic and financial, data. I think it's very good. For a CFO, he needs to understand the basic financials, but then he also needs to tie that from a strategic perspective to where the bank or a company wants to grow to. And and in a strategic sense, if you understand the strategy, you've got to find a way to make sure the numbers, you've got to connect the dots with the numbers to get there. And I think, so that's essential. I think the other thing essential for a good CFO is to make sure you have a very good team underneath you that is willing to, that basically understands your vision, that is not afraid to ask questions, that is not afraid to say no, because as a CFO, you not only have to make sure that your company is growing, but you also have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders and stakeholders to make sure that you don't do it in a way where you will be liable, or you don't do it in a way that you can have reputation risk or other risk. So you've basically also got to make sure from a fiduciary perspective you're towing the lines and everything's happening within the framework of controls. And then the last thing I would think is it's essential is to make sure that a good CFO is to make sure he understands what the CEO wants to do or get done. So he, in a way, very often a CFO is also the front to what the CEO wants to get done. So having that connection and having that understanding is essential.
What would you consider your key achievements are within your career path?
I think, look, I'm sitting here today in front of you. To me, I'm surprised that I'm sitting out here. But, I think a lot of that depends on every individual, because what you'll find that, especially today in a bank like JP Morgan or any bank, there is no limit on career progression. It really depends on an individual on what they want to do and where they see their career going and how do they want to get there. I think you'll see most of the banks will offer an individual all the tools and resources, but then it's up to that individual to take the risk, to put in the hard work, to make the commitment, to leverage those to get where they want to get to. And in every career, there's a bit of luck. And then when I say a bit of luck, there's about being at the right place at the right time. But then a lot of it is also about hard work, and a lot of it is also about, making use of the opportunities that are presented to you. And sometimes people have to go one step backwards to get two steps forward, and you've got to kind of balance that.
What do you like most about your current role?
What I like most about my current role, I guess, is much more on the strategic side of the business. I clearly enjoy analyzing JP Morgan's footprint in Asia. I clearly look at where our businesses have come from, the growth rates that we've seen over the last couple of years, and how much more we need to get done to kind of be best in class across all our product set or across all our capabilities. I enjoy the analytical side of the business, but none of that is possible without people. So a lot of my time is spent on people development, on people coaching, on people mentoring, because I truly believe anyone who's good, especially at a managerial level, is only good because of the team they have underneath them. So, and all these firms, especially financial institutions, the biggest assets are people. Our biggest asset are our people, and making sure that we take care of them is paramount.
How do you keep on top of industry development?
Read. Just read a lot. Whether it's newspapers, the FT, Wall Street Journal. Internally, I generally try and read every analyst report. You have a lot of equity analysts in the financial space that basically publish reports across our competitors, that publish reports on changes in industry, regulatory changes in the industry, accounting changes in the industry. So just reading, I would say, and given the advent of the internet, there's so much information out there that I would advise people to really read up on all that if they want to basically get ahead, because information is the edge.
How is networking important to career development?
I think networking is very important. I think it's, and I would say that both from a professional perspective and a personal perspective. From a personal perspective, in an organization as big as JP Morgan or Citibank or Deutsche Bank, where you have 230,000 people or more, it's like a small country. I think networking is very important in order to understand, one, how you're perceived, two, in order to get some help to get to in realizing your goals and objectives. And and I think about networking from two aspects. One is the formal side of networking, where you get where you are generally paired up with a mentor. But I think in big organizations, the informal side of networking is even more important. And a lot of that is making sure that you get the informal mentor that you get, or the formal mentor that you get, is also perceived in the right light internally. So it's in a way, riding somebody else's coattails to get where you need to get to, and it's very important how you play that in big organizations. And then on a personal development side, I think if you have good mentoring and generally, and if you have good relationship with mentors, when they leave an organization, that goodwill goes with them. So if they go to a competitive firm or they go to another industry, to the extent that if you've proved yourself in your current job, that mentoring aspect and that goodwill stays. And what I've personally found is that, it's personally benefited me quite a lot, where I have people who I've worked with have gone on to other banks, and every time there's a big job opportunity out there, there's always a call from a headhunter saying, hey, so-and-so at this bank would love for you to come work with them. So, so I think mentoring is very essential in the workforce today, whether it's financial industries or anywhere else.
You're responsible for forecasting and performance management. What are the key attributes for this type of role?
I think it's, again, I come back to the same thing. For any of these roles, I think, especially in the financial in the financial space, you need to understand how a company makes money. You need to understand the basics about how they make money, and then you need to build from there into saying, okay, in terms of whether it's a sales and trading organization, okay, so how much P&L am I making for the risk that I'm taking? What's my balance sheet utilization? What's my risk-weighted assets? What are some of the key KPIs or key performance indicators that drive that business? And then being able to measure and assess the performance of that unit or of that business against those KPIs vis-a-vis the competition, in terms of understanding, how are we doing versus the competition within the industry. So I would get back to basically saying really understanding the details around how we make money and what we need to do to make that money.
How important are professional qualifications to your career?
Within the financial institutions, I think obviously having a bachelor's degree is important, having a professional certification like an CPA or CA is important. The second one, professional degree, yes, otherwise you obviously won't get hired. But the second one, I don't think is that important, or an MBA. I think it's great to have it. What I always require, what I want is people with common sense, people who can distinguish between right and wrong, people who can ask the right questions and not afraid to say no or ask questions, people with humility, because I think that's important. And then we'll teach them the rest. I mean, in all these institutions today, there's so much time and effort being put on development and training and the curriculum that goes in there, that if you come in with your fundamentals intact, we'll teach you the rest. So I don't think, advanced degrees are that important. And if you go on to take a look at some of the leaders in the industry, a lot of them basically have come up, sometimes with no degrees and sometimes with just your basic, degree.
What is your approach to work-life balance?
It's a personal choice. And I think, a lot of people nowadays, a lot of these industries have created a lot of programs around work-life balance. But I think the key to managing work-life balance is not the programs and not what companies do, but you as an individual. And I think that comes back down to what you think about how good are you at your own prioritization and time management. I think to me, a happy family life makes a very happy work life. And I think it's essential to prioritize that throughout your career. And for me, that comes down to basically ensuring that that as you get up the management chain, you understand what's important. You understand what's important to get done, and you understand those tasks that which can stay for ages to come and that won't bring a company down. So it again gets back to prioritization. But I think it's very important. I mean, I am a big proponent of work-life balance. I mean, if things are done, I get up and leave, as opposed to just sitting around and, for FaceTime. I mean, and especially at JP Morgan in the summer, we've instituted half-day Fridays so people can, make use of the summer and get out throughout the summer and use that time to spend with the families.
Aashish, how do you inspire and motivate your team?
I think in terms of inspiring and motivating a team, it's essential to, understand what makes that team tick, or what makes the individuals in the team tick. Then it's important to, make sure that the team understands that you're there for them, and they can trust you, and you've got to win that loyalty over. Once that happens, I think, it's easy to, once you get their loyalty, I think it's very easy to inspire and motivate them. And I mean, for me, it's things like, helping them through their issues. I mean, there are at times people on the team will face different issues regarding their regarding their work, or things they might be, or problems they might be having with different people. It's helping them work through those issues. It's helping them. It's making sure their professional development and objectives are met. It's giving them the right training. And then I think it's also helping them with making sure, they can meet their work-life objectives. So there's a whole bunch of, very soft skills that you've got to constantly be on top of to inspire that team. I think what people forget is that when you have good people that work for you, they will leave you unless you give them the stuff that inspires them. And, you kind of think about it in three ways. One is kind of the constant motivational feedback. One is obviously helping them realize their own personal objectives. And then third one, I would say, is to make sure you kind of pay them, and you pay them well.
Do you have a mentor?
Yes.
How is it important to have a mentor?
As elaborated, I think a couple of questions ago, very, very important. And I think mentorship is, in any big firm or any organization, just not a financial institution, but any organization, mentorship is very important. And you have that in a way through college, you have that in a way through your work life, because they help you navigate. They give you feedback that other people would be afraid to give you, or generally, skirt around it, as opposed to being very open about it. They help you, they help you establish a broader network. through their connections that can help you then get ahead in terms of your own personal development. So I think mentorship is very important.
In a new hire, what are the qualities that you look for?
I think in a new hire, what I would say is, obviously we want to make sure their educational qualifications, credentials are what they say to be. But besides that, what I would say I'd look for is the ability, I'd look for common sense. The ability to display good common sense and being able to distinguish right from wrong and having the fortitude to say if something's wrong, it's wrong. And on the other side, also having the wherewithal to stand up and ask questions if they don't know what they're talking about.
For graduates looking for a new role, what advice do you have for them?
Obviously, I want to make sure that from an educational perspective, they've got the basic building blocks. But then after that, it's more about taking that educational aspect and being a little bit commercial about it, being a team player, having integrity and character. I would say, being the fortitude to say, to distinguish between right and wrong, and if something's wrong, to stand up and say it's wrong, challenge status quo. That's what basically I would look for in a graduate.
Aashish, thank you so much for being a part of the CFO Master Series.
Thank you for having me, Andrew. I enjoyed that. Thank you.